That means that we will continue to fight for the sovereignty of our country while strengthening Team Canada right here at home. We are ready for any eventuality that comes our way from a Canada-US perspective, and at the same time, we are ensuring that we are eliminating barriers to trade within our own country. The third angle is going to be diversifying supply chains. We have to make sure that we are trading with multiple partners in multiple locations. Canada is the only G7 country that has a free trade agreement with every other G7 country. That means while we address a situation with the U.S., while we move to eliminate interprovincial barriers to trade, we are also ensuring that we diversify Canadian supply chains for Canadian manufactured products, for Canadian natural resources, for Canadian critical minerals. The bottom line is we need to leverage Canadian strength, and that is what we will continue to do from a Team Canada perspective.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's good to be back. We're just back from Washington. I can tell you the tone has changed, and that's a good thing. I think this morning the Prime Minister spoke. We had hundreds of business leaders, labor union, which were with us. This is Canada's moment. This is about Canada being ambitious. This is about Canada being confident. This is about Canada winning in the economy of the 21st century. I can tell you in our conversation we had in Washington, there's never been a better time to make the case for Canada. We know we have a reprieve, but we need to double down and making sure that our American friends understand the integrated nature of our relationship. The fact that we buy more from the United States than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. And I would say Canada has everything to succeed. We have the talent. Let's be honest. Canada is a big magnet for talent. We have large ecosystem. We're a nation that build planes, that build cars, that build ships, that build microchips. We are a nation which has all the critical minerals to power the economy of the 21st century. We have abundant energy and renewable energy. And as my colleague said, we are the only G7 nation which has a free trade agreement with all the other G7 nations. So this is about diversifying our economy, diversifying our export market, and also perhaps diversifying how we import. So in this sense, we're going to be focusing, as Minister Anand said, well, a Canada free trade agreement, a Canada first procurement policy so we can buy here domestically, and at the same time looking how we can make Canada more resilient.
One of the reasons we're going to come out of this even stronger is because we have natural stabilizers. We take care of our own here in Canada. It is, as I reminded Unifor workers or steel workers in Hamilton, trades workers throughout southern Ontario this week, we have, among our many advantages that François Philippe and Anita talked about, is that we look after our people. And the auto worker in Ohio or Michigan or South Carolina cannot count on the solidarity and the stabilizers that Canadians have decided to give themselves in our economy. So should the worst happen, and we are by all means working to ensure that that does not happen, we are ready and prepared, and we will look after Canadians. But what I think will come from this is a version of the best. It's time to get on with focusing on our economy, focusing on what we can fix here in Canada, focusing on continuing to open ourselves to the world, and we'll do it with the best men and women that exist on the planet. Canadian men and women,
What is the priority for the first 30 days? You said you want to protect the Canadian economy, do not protect Canadian workers. What can they expect if the worst happens in 30 days?
well, we will be there with obviously assistance for Canadian workers, and that will take many, many forms. We will help businesses adapt to a new reality. We will help Canadian workers get through any kind of dislocation that occurs, and we will continue to adapt and add to that as time goes on, if need be. But what we're here today to do is not to talk about the worst case scenario. We're here with business leaders, with union leaders, with Indigenous leaders, with people from all across this country. One of the most inspiring sessions that I've ever been involved with, where you literally see much of the decision-making capacity of Canada in this room committing themselves to our country, committing themselves to building our country, committing themselves to a renewed focus on our strategic advantages, on our people, and on making sure that Canada comes out of this even stronger than ever. And the message I want to send to Canadians is this country is strong. Don't screw with us. We will come out ahead.
Uh,
Prime Minister is correct that Donald Trump is looking to benefit from Canada's critical minerals and is not joking about annexation. Should Canada fence off its critical minerals, or are you putting at risk Canada's critical minerals and our own security and trying to do business with him?
Well, I would say I was in Washington, and one thing that the folks, I was with Minister Blair, we talked with the defense industry in the United States, and one thing they understand, there cannot be a revival of U.S. industry, and I would say, without Canada. Canada is essential for the prosperity, the security of North America and the United States. And I can tell you, the tone has changed. You should have been with me in Washington. Tone has changed. You know, there was a time, this has been a wake-up call on both sides of the country. And I think if I want to add to what Stephen was saying before, what's going to change after that? Confidence. This is about a confident Canada. This is about resiliency. This is about ambition. It's about time in Canada. This is Canada's moment, I think. You should have seen the leaders in the room. We were there. You have a renewed sense of capabilities. It reminds me of CDAO in 1945, where you reimagine an ambitious, prosperous Canada, where we started to build planes, to build cars, to build ships. You know, this is the, I would say also the golden age of America and Canada. And to your, well, I do that for 10 years. But to your question about critical minerals, I would say that American friends, and I was meeting with the largest defense industry yesterday. One thing that I made clear is that the supply chain are very integrated, and that Canada is prepared and willing to work with our American friends on the basis of mutual respect. Respecting our sovereignty, respecting the dignity of our workers and our industry. And they understand now better than ever that you cannot pick on Canada and make life more affordable for Americans. You cannot pick on Canada and making sure that you rebuild your industrial capacity, and you cannot pick on Canada and make North America more secure. So I would say there's a renewed sense that U.S. industry, U.S. decision makers we met, they want to work with Canada. They understand we're essential for their prosperity.
Excuse me, I'm just gonna respond to the first question, which was the tangible results that we are going to see in the short term. And from the perspective of building our domestic economy, we will reduce and eliminate barriers to trade interprovincially. We know the end state. This is not theoretical. The end state for reducing barriers to trade internally is threefold. One, to establish mutual recognition amongst provinces and territories across the country. Two, to reduce the number of exceptions in the Canadian Free Trade Agreement significantly. Three, to ensure greater labor mobility across the country through easing the permitting and licensing process that workers across this country have to endure if they simply want to follow demand and go to another jurisdiction to work. Those are three recommendations that each of the provinces and territories have agreed to already, and the premiers themselves as well have empowered these ministers to carry this work through in the next 30 days. So the tangible results in the next 30 days for us to reduce red tape, for us to eliminate barriers to trade, and for us to build a domestic economy without going through Donald Trump is here and is now, and we will continue as colleagues to work on that together. Don't.
Was that discussed? Is there consensus?
The reduction of red tape amongst provinces and territories is not focused on the infrastructure such as East-West pipeline. It is focused on reducing red tape so that infrastructure of any sort can get built, so that workers of any occupation can follow demand and work. And so we are not focused on the one particular infrastructure project. All options are on the table always, but our focus right now is on reducing red tape and eliminating barriers to trade.
I would say maybe
CFTA, you said you expected it to be reduced significantly in the next 30 days. Can you quantify it significantly?
So let me talk about the federal perspective, because that's what I have jurisdiction over. Right now we have, no, I didn't share the numbers on that. 39 federal exceptions. We are looking to reduce federal exceptions to less than half. And those will include reducing the barriers to trade on financial services and on procurement. What do I mean? Right now, the federal government has duplicative regulation for financial services and insurance, and the provinces have their own jurisdiction and regulation there. We want to eliminate the federal red tape there. Also on procurement, we know that there is red tape in procurement. We want to remove federal barriers to trade there so it's easier to compete for federal contracts. That's two tangible examples.
Well, I would say, and I just want to come back to the energy question before. I think Canadians have understood now that we need to be resilient when it comes to energy security. I think we live in a different world. Canadians have seen that the rules of the game have changed, and therefore you need to adapt. The worst we could do is to look back. We need to look forward in this country, realize that we are blessed with natural resources, with gas, with oil, with electricity. So as you're looking at that, it's not a one-way street, it's both ways. We may want to look also as how we can bring electricity to different provinces, renewable energy. We've been talking about the nuclear industry, which is booming. So I think that it is time as Canadians, as we have seen, now we need to be more resilient. We need to be bold. We need to be confident. This is our moment, and therefore when it comes to energy, definitely I've been talking to premiers, a number of premiers about that, making sure that they understand and that we work together when it comes to energy. To go to your question, I think standing up, I think one thing that we have learned, and I think the world has learned, you need to stand up, you need to be firm, you need to be confident, you need to be as well constructive. And I would say, you know, there's very few people who wake up in the morning in Washington thinking about Canada. And I would think it's probably the same for a number of countries. So you need to make the case in Washington to say, let's talk about security. Let's talk about supply chain resiliency. Let's talk about a growth agenda. This is a very turbulent world, and I can tell you these three themes that we have brought time and time again, we need to double down our effort. And I think I said to my American friends, you know, the world is watching how you're treating your best friend, your best ally, and your best partner. So therefore, let's work together on that because the world is watching. We've been talking with our European friends. We've been talking to people in Asia, and they're very much looking what's going on.
Tonda asked you a question about what the Prime Minister told people behind closed doors, that Mr. Trump is sincere in his desire to annex Canada because he wants access to our critical minerals. What do you say to that? How do you deal with somebody who disrespects us like that?
I'm going to say,
take us over, not trade with us.
I think I would be reflecting the spirit in the room, and more importantly, the spirit across this country. Canada's free. Canada is sovereign. Canada will choose its own destiny. Thank you very much. But Canada is forever. So Canada will make its choices. Canada, as we all know, we have regions, we have political differences, we have debates, we have lively question and answer sessions. But Canada is united on one thing, its pride in being Canadian. And we will always, always, always stand up for this country, for its people, and for the ability to make our choices for ourselves. Thank you.
Can I, on the question that Steve asked and Tonda asked, the spirit in the room, the spirit around each and every table I have been at in the last 2 to 3 months, that's business leaders, that's government leaders, that's labor leaders, reflects one unified comment and response, and that is there will be no messing with the 49th parallel, period.